to obstruct the certification proceeding.
That sounds like it could be Stone, but we'll see. It's going to be interesting.
Well,
Um,
I'm fascinated by the reaction on the right now because man, it is a full court press. It is so unbelievably crazy. They're all calling it a power grab, an attempt to steal the election interference, and I'm talking from Charlie Kirk to Tucker to across the board of all these lunatics who are trying to defend the indefensible. But you know what's scary? On Fox, you've got Turley saying, "Oh, this case is weak. This case will never hold up." I mean, this is what's insane about this is I've rarely seen them move this quickly to put the shield wall up in the last few years, and it is going fast. And I think it's going to be something that is really dangerous.
Well, they were ready for it. They were ready for it. They had it. They disciplined and they had it all ready to go, and they're jumping all over it.
Well, and you saw too that in the last couple of days, Trump had started, and we saw it follow up with Greg Gutfeld today, which was this is the past. We need to leave the past behind, right? It's 2.5 years already.
Right.
Gutfeld said the same thing. They don't ever want January 6th to go away. They don't ever want us to forget about it because you know what? It's the media and the Democrats who quote unquote set the narrative. They want to use this so they can beat Democrats. And then he went right back in, guys. So we're seeing the replay here, right back into, and we don't ever talk about the George Floyd riots and the dozens of people that were killed there. So we can also see that equivalency line is coming back together as well.
Right.
You want to talk about January 6th and Donald Trump, but you never want to talk about those people doing things.
But you know the
other let me just say, if Roger Stone is not indicted, he will issue a press release saying he should have been. So
but you know, I think
right.
the stunning thing about this indictment, if you read through it, and just sort of the crescendo of knowing you lost, creating the big lie, getting people stoked up again about it, then constructing a way to go after the fake electors and go after Mike Pence and go after get the Congress to try to steal the election.
Right.
If you go through that indictment, the thing that's scary, it's so scary about it is it continues. That conspiracy has continued.
Joe, that is such a good point. That is such a good point. This is an ongoing criminal conspiracy. This is a criminal enterprise on the part of Trump and his allies that continues to this very day.
Yes.
Well, look, I mean, we saw this.
It's going to continue through 2024. This will go to court. It'll get tried, all that stuff. But assuming nothing happens prior to the election, we'll see. Hopefully it gets a speedy trial. But that conspiracy continues. It continues with RFK Jr. and the Trump money that's going to him and everything else that's going on out there and changing the state laws and everything else. This conspiracy, his creating the big lie is now still coursing through the veins of our democracy in state after state where his minions are still doing his work.
So let me say this. So Stuart said this in 2021. After January 6th, after the first slew of voting suppression laws got passed, which was the single biggest question in the Republican primary of 2024 was whether or not Donald Trump won the 2020 election, whether or not it was rigged, whether or not it was stolen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is before we knew that Trump would run again. It has become that. And I think, to bring up what you guys said about how quickly Fox got on board, remember that we had a first New York Times national survey out yesterday saying Trump is trouncing the field, and that even some of his support, even some Republican voters who believe that he broke the law numerous times are supporting him, right? So why is Fox getting on board? Because they know, well, this is our guy.
Right.
His people are our people are his people, and they've got to defend him now.
And I know we get a lot of static from people who said for the last year when we said Donald Trump will almost certainly win the nomination. We had all these people on the left and the right who were like, you just want Trump back. No, I want Trump to be eaten by fucking rabid wolves and shat out on the forest floor, folks. But that's not what was ever going to happen. What was going to happen is what's happening right now. He was going to dominate the primary field, and these people who have burned mountains of money trying to get to win the primary, to influence the primary, are you might as well just pour the money on a bonfire. But even with all of this, there are people in the Democratic side of the equation who have still been wish casting, like, oh, well, the indictment will definitely take him out. Guys, he can still win the nomination. He can still win the presidency. These trials are not going to happen in time to put this fucking guy in jail. Please pay attention to this. This is the moment where everybody needs to get behind Joe Biden on the pro-democracy side of this equation and put aside all your fantasies it's going to be anybody else, because the war is on, and it is the most consequential decision anybody can make right now.
All right, so Stuart, we've been talking about this now for the better part of 2 years. We might have told you folks before that it was a conversation 3 years ago, a little more than 3 years ago, with Trump's niece, Mary Trump, who convinced us that if he lost in 20, he wouldn't go quietly. She said he wouldn't. She was right, and there's sometimes you don't want to be right. We saw all this. And, talking about the ongoing criminal conspiracy, right? When he wins the nomination, right, here's what he will say. I was nominated again. I won in 2016. I won in 2020. I'm going to win in 2024. And the only way I lose is if they steal it from us, right? It will never stop.
Yeah, the conspiracy continues. It's continued and continuing today. Absolutely.
Yeah. So this is why I wrote a book that's coming out in October called "The Conspiracy to Kill America."
Available where all fine books are sold.
Where you can now pre-order from your.
You can pre-order it. I have.
When I read this indictment, I ask the question, like, couldn't you list 20, 30 senators or congressmen, more congressmen?
Absolutely. Josh Hawley, Tom
thing?
Cotton, Rick Scott, Tommy Tuberville, Cindy Hyde-Smith, Ted fucking Cruz.
Mike Lee is right at the top of that list. He's all over this thing. You remember that it was Mike Lee. We should remember Senator Mike Lee from Utah, who openly says he does not believe in democracy, is the person who introduced not only Sidney Powell, but also John Eastman to the White House. And remember, was texting with Mark Meadows saying, give me something I can use up here to try and figure out how to get this done.
Correct.
Well, Jack Smith did say that the investigation was continuing into others. So
let me ask you this, guys. So let's put our best. Back in the day, Rudy was a mob prosecutor. Rick, you spent some time in New York. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. So the mob boss is under indictment in multiple places. You've got goons all around him. Do these people really want to spend time in federal prison?
Look, a lot of the people around Trump. And yesterday, by the way, Trump was given the discovery of everybody who's been interviewed and cooperated. So I predict that he's going to be going through a big old rage fest of people who were not completely loyal to him. But there are
send your ketchup to Mar-a-Lago, care of Lincoln.
There are many people on this list, many of these people involved in this, who are making a political bet that Trump will be reelected.
Yep.
And they're taking a political gamble that they should just wait it out. They should just plot and scheme and delay, and Trump will win, and they'll be able to walk free. But
Rick, doesn't that increase the danger, though? Because now these are going to be people who have it all on the line to make sure this guy gets reelected or at least returns to power.
That's exactly where I'm going with this, Reed. This is going to be an incentive for these Republicans to lie, cheat, steal, resort to violence, resort to any kind of criminality to win, because they're desperate now. They're not in a gray area. This is black and white for them. It's existential for them. These people are going to either go to prison or go to the White House.
Yeah.
I think that they're going to be very open about it. Like, I think that they're going to say, we need to elect Donald Trump so he can pardon himself. I think that's going to be. I think they'll make
all the 1-6 patriots
and the 1-6 patriots.
Right.
I think they'll make ads about that. And this is our way to fight the deep state And this is perfectly constitutional. Constitution gave him the right to pardon. So if we elect him president, and if you don't elect him president, you're saying that this person you supported is going to go to prison. That'll be the end of America. I think increases the chances Trump will get elected.
And
So,
guys,
Not
so
the primary, but get elected. Because
by the way,
they'll turn out low frequency voters like nothing you've ever seen.
these guys are also right now roaring across Twitter. You've got people saying this is civil war. Mm-hmm. This is a civil war. And they look at this as more existential than a lot of our Democratic friends look at it. Because there are people in Washington who think, okay, Trump coming back would suck. It would be terrible, but it's not going to blow up my lobbying firm or my law firm. Guys, you better understand, if Trump comes back to Washington, it's a revolutionary moment. And I don't mean that in the fun way. I mean that in the people getting shot way. It is not going to go well. These people, the tone of the Tim Pools and the Jack Posobiec's and all the people that are massive followerships out on social media on the far right, they are treating this as if it is an assault on the goodness and constitutional strength of America. They're going at this hard. Do not underestimate what they're doing or what they're trying to accomplish.
Well, and to sort of echo what you're saying there, Rick, on the violence point, there's a couple of references in the indictment. I think one by Jeff, what's his name here, where he said that's what when someone says this may not go, this may create riots in the street. He says that's what the Insurrection Act is for. And then Eastman says something similar, which is occasionally violence is necessary or something like that. So these are people so far into that region that this was something that they were willing to go along with.
Yeah, look, I think you have to get inside their mindset. If you believe that Biden didn't win, then we have an illegal president. We have the White House
in an occupied country.
We live in an occupied country. So therefore, you not only have the right to do what it takes to restore democracy in America, and that's the way they will look at it, restore democracy. Yeah. Some people will think you have an obligation. And then you're down that, bullshit 3% thing.
Charlie Kirk, we're gonna put Democratic leaders in jail. This is not, this is war. Blah blah blah. All of these people.
Well, and what they're stoking though won't end even when we defeat them. If we, if we do the work in November, the violence that you saw on January 6th. I mean, again, it'll be stoked, as you pointed out. He'll be screaming at the end, "The only way I can lose is if they steal it."
Right.
And then, of course, we'll have stolen it, and then January 6th will be child's play with what he will try to stoke. I mean, that's what I mean about the conspiracy that started that, prior to that election that kept going, that he's being charged with, and with these conspirators. There's more of them out there now because they're everywhere. They're in these states and they're doing his bidding to change the rules. To fund campaigns and third parties and things that will help him get there, so he can pardon himself and them. And if they fail, the Civil War, they're still.
Hey, Reed, Sam has a new Trump commercial loaded up, the one that really lays out exactly.
Oh yeah, let's look at that.
What you're saying?
Okay, Sam, go ahead and run it for us.
Sam, can you roll that sucker, please?
What do you call someone this weak? Someone caught in a bribery scandal that made them millions, complicit in a government cover-up, and uses your government to get special deals for his family? You call them Joe Biden. And acting just like a corrupt third-world dictator, Biden has unleashed a cadre of unscrupulous government bureaucrats he controls to act like rabid wolves and attack his greatest threat, launching one of the greatest witch hunts in history. But Biden's underestimated the intelligence of voters, and Trump's support is growing even stronger as hard-working Americans come together in huge numbers to stand with the one person they know has their backs and will fight to make America great again.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Well, there you
So what
go.
I love most about that is
Yep.
all those white people in that Trump crowd and all those not white prosecutors. Like, how subtle can you be?
Yeah,
I
it's a really delicate, subtle kind of
yeah,
racism.
I mean,
Well, so let's talk about that. So here we have Trump's now. This is his, I guess, third indictment, right? We expect that that Fannie Willis down in Fulton County, Georgia, will be
Yep.
sometime before the end of this month. I think we'll see
that's
the virulent racism
the
come back.
easiest indictment. I mean, that
Right.
100.
And so, I think this is, let's talk about these members of Congress for a second too. We talked about a Mike Lee. Remember, there was all that testimony from the January 6th hearings last
Yep.
summer, which a lot of which you see reappear here in the
And I think
indictment. Go ahead.
it's so important to know that January 6th opened the door to a lot of the stuff Jack Smith has used. Those hearings opened the door to a lot of this material.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
Liz
would have never
Cheney's got
known
to
this
be feeling.
without January 6th.
Liz Cheney's got to be feeling pretty good right now.
And Adam Kinzinger too. He's
And
been
Adam
out there
Kinzinger, and
outlaying. Yep.
yeah,
All those people.
So look, it's going to continue, and the pressure is going to get hotter and hotter. Let's talk about Trump's, and I put opponents in air quotes. So right before we went on, somebody mentioned that Vivek Ramaswamy already said that if Trump were, when he's elected president, that Trump will be pardoned.
so you don't
Where do
have
we
to vote
think
for Trump. You can vote for him, and you'll get a
you could
pardon.
vote for him? Right.
Woo!
I'm sure that'll go over. But now we have a debate coming up in about 3 weeks. Trump will probably be fresh off yet a fourth indictment for 2020 related crimes.
Right.
Um, as this was breaking, Kevin McCarthy was out there doing Biden crime family stuff, which is the other thing too. Talking to somebody yesterday, you should never forget that like equivalency is so crucial for these people, right? Biden has to be as bad as Trump. Biden's
Right.
family has to be as bad as Trump's. America has to be as bad as Russia, right? We are no better than anybody else, right? America's no greater a country, frankly. That's why it has to be made great again. And so this false moral equivalency, Stuart, I think is a cornerstone of their political defense.
Yeah, just in a political consultant way. I really don't get the logic of. I mean, I get the false equivalency thing, which I think they can't resist, right? I mean, I
Right.
think it's they have to do it. But I mean, if we were sitting in a room and you say, "What do you want this race to be about?" and you go, "Well, corruption."
Right.
Surely. So, I mean, if it's a race about corruption, and the guy who's going to have, I don't know how many indictments is he going to have? I mean, he's going to be getting close to like 80 or something, come election.
Well,
Look, I mean,
Individual
and
counts
even their
anyway. Yeah.
comparisons, like 10 million does not equal 2 billion. That could
right.
be.
It's like
I
the
mean, it's just
wholesale.
not even
He's
on a
buying. He's
scale.
collecting indictments wholesale at this point.
But
Yeah.
also look the projection, right? They're not counting on the intelligence of the American people. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I would try to make the
Well,
race about something else. I would
well,
try to make it about um, the fact that, you know, I would be doing Afghanistan. God forbid, I don't want to tell these people what to do. They might do it. But
I mean, but remember, I mean, this the thing that hangs over all this is nothing has changed. I mean, the Times Siena poll, the doom poll, as Jonathan Last at the Bulwark calls it, 13% of Republican voters believe that Trump had done something wrong related to 1/6 and related to the last couple of years. 13%.
Right.
So let's say that number goes up 5% or 5 points, right? So it's still under 20% of Republican voters believe he's done something wrong. This is not, I mean, we have to really be prepared for a race where the narrative battles are going to be almost incomprehensible to sane people, almost unparsable to people who speak the English language and who think about things in a normal, sane human way. And
Well, I think that's what they wanted in 20. The problem was
yeah,
the pandemic.
it's the Bannon. It's the Bannon like flood the zone with shit was the Bannon.
Well, look, let me ask Joe a question. Joe, how many people who voted for Roy Moore thought that he was credibly charged for child molesting? A pretty good number, right? I mean,
It was
they'd rather vote for him than
what was
Roe.
it, Joe? It was in the high 30s.
Yeah, no, but the thing is, and again, that does get down to what we're talking about. Look, things were so polarized that we were fighting over each side turning out its base of true
Yep.
believers, and fighting over a very small sliver of people that were really, as looking at it and saying, "Oh no, I can't do Roy Moore," but gosh, I can't believe I'm going to vote for
But
a
I can't
Democrat
vote for communism.
yeah, who ended up basically in the end, a lot of them Republican women and younger Republicans, joining with a massive turnout of African
Right.
Americans, blacks in the state. It was that group that let us win by 23,000 votes. We're sitting in the same place today. When you're this polarized
Right.
as we are,
Tammy,
the problem.
Tammy, thank you. Jason Miller is number 6, is the political consultant.
Oh
Jason Miller,
gosh,
my former intern.
It all comes back to you,
Tammy thought
Stuart.
I was Dr. Phil too, so that's kind of
You
hurts.
know,
And
when the people I used to work with, and my dear friends, when they really want to give me shit, they'll say, remember, Stuart, you really like Jason.
We were all wrong.
but
So, guys, let me ask you this. I was having a
And the other
conversation
rando
with
was
some.
Ken Cheeseborough, that
So
fucking guy.
can we just
Right.
pause? I can't let Jason Miller go. So Jason Miller, who is a deadbeat dad, who
Yes,
is the guy who we made an ad about Jason Miller. He's such a horrible human being, and a
that's
guy
right.
was never a very good political consultant.
No,
Who all of these people who ended up with Trump, it's not like they woke up in 16 and they wanted to be involved in a presidential race. They always wanted to be involved in presidential races. Nobody would let them inside. I mean, the Kellyanne Conways, the Serb Gorkos, the Jason Millers. So
the
Trump
Sharon
is going to let
Jacobi.
all these broken people in. Bannon,
But these are the kinds of movements that allow those people in
and
because no one else is willing to
that's
do
the
it.
1930s, in
Right.
Germany when he let all these people in. And you know what? It's so just finish up with Jason Miller. So you got a deadbeat dad, a guy who, under deposition, under oath, admits going to prostitutes instead of paying child support. So just pause on that. He doesn't has enough money to go to prostitutes, but not
Tried
to
to
pay
poison
child
his
support.
stripper girlfriend when she got pregnant and threatened to reveal her
Yeah.
pregnancy to the other girlfriend.
So just
No, he
just
was
say that.
he
Say
tried
that
to
again,
slip
Richard.
the morning after pill in a
Right, he
drink
tried
of
to
hers.
poison her.
Tell that people don't know this story. Jason Miller had a
Right,
stripper
he was cheating on
girlfriend.
his wife with one stripper, and the other girlfriend, who I think was also a stripper, was pregnant. And so he tried to give her a smoothie with the morning after pill in it. And this is a quality individual, and 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 impregnated someone on the 2016 campaign while he was married. Who,
While his wife was pregnant, also.
while his wife was pregnant, who he then promised a job in the White House and didn't give it to her, and then promised child support and didn't give it to her, and it went through this long wrangle back and forth. And at the end of the day, Jason Miller is like the perfect apotheosis of Trump world. He's
So one sweet thing.
Remember that. Remember at the beginning of the Shawshank Redemption, where it's the first night in prison, and there's that guy crying.
Yep. Oh,
So
listen,
go look
Jason
at
Miller will not make it out of the fucking police car. He
guys.
won't make
Go
it out of
look
the
at
prison van.
go look at Jason Miller's testimony that he gave. He tries to throw Trump under the bus.
Right.
He tries to say that he had nothing to do with this, and he still ends up getting indicted.
Right.
So can we talk about this, because Stuart, something you brought up, and something that again, kudos to and hat tips to Mary Trump about this, is that we've heard and we've said this last summer, I think, when the FBI searched Mar-a-Lago. Trump is afraid of prison. Trump is deathly afraid of
Yeah.
prison. And I had this idea, guys, that it's like, Trump might never, he'll never spend a day in prison, right?
No.
They'll give him like the Pablo Escobar thing, or they'll give him home confinement at
Right. He'll
Mar-a-Lago.
be stuck in Mar-a-Lago on house arrest
But
for 3
I
years or
think I'm
whatever.
wrong. I think Jack Smith is like, no, we're gonna convict you, and then I'm gonna let the Bureau of Prisons figure out what to do with you.
Yeah.
Right? That won't be my
yeah,
problem then. It'll be the Bureau of Prisons, and say, so
Well, I
you
mean,
got some choices.
It's the Secret Service's job to keep protectees safe. You can arrange that. There are prisons where people can be kept safely.
yeah.
You
Right.
know.
So I mean, I'm sort of
the rest of his miserable life in solitary confinement and administrative segregation.
Right. I mean, I don't think they're going to send him to Florence, Colorado, or anything, but there's nothing that says he wouldn't.
Hey, listen,
there's not
Ted
a facility
Kaczynski
out there somewhere.
The Kaczynski suite is open.
There is a vacancy. How long do you think it's going to take Jason Miller to flip? I mean, do you not? He
is a gentleman of some girth, so it'll take some momentum to get him going.
But do you guys see Giuliani? Any of them? I mean, who's your best guess at who?
Giuliani's got to be one.
No, but who flips, if anybody, of that group?
Rudy's going to flip. He's desperately broke. He has no hope of anything. And Rudy actually knows this process more than the rest of them. And he's got a better appreciation for the level of how fucked they are.
Right. I mean, I remember when I lived in California and did work, right? Eastman was thought of as this very highbrow constitutional
right? Yeah,
lawyer.
No, he used to be one of those people like
well, they've all
a
taken
name.
Everything Trump touches dies, as Rick,
right.
Point in, and it's amazing how far Rudy, all of them have just have been hit by this and went along with it. It's just amazing to me.
And remember, there were a whole bunch of members of the U.S. House, in particular, right after January 6th, who were looking for pardons before Trump left office. For it sort of
remember Matt Gaetz and
remember
Marjorie
Taylor Greene wasn't smart enough, to figure out how to ask for it.
Yeah, and if you look at this, if they went after these people,
they should have just gone to the Schlapp family. They were selling pardons, Matt and Mercy were selling pardons.
Isn't this going to send a signal, though, that because they don't have like a limit on the number of indictments they can give. There's no they haven't gotten over their bag limit here. So anybody out there can think, well, they've gone after these people. If they come and they ask me to testify, I'm just going to tell everything I know.
Well, and remember, we have false electors now under indictment in Michigan. Right. So they can be, and I don't know what the rules are it's not like campaign finance, right? I assume the federal prosecutors can talk to Attorney General Dana Nessel in Lansing and say, listen, if any of those folks want to talk to me, I'm happy to fly to Detroit and talk to them. Right.
I wonder what Richard Grinnell is thinking right now.
I wonder what Richard Grinnell, Kash Patel, Seb Gorka, Boris Epstein. There's a whole cadre of these people who are also part of this giant MAGA infrastructure that's being built in DC.
Well, look, Meadows is there too, right?
Mark Meadows, right? All these people who
Meadows had to flip, or he would be indicted here.
Oh yeah, Meadows had to flip, but he doesn't have that much money. He's not rich enough to save himself.
Well, and we have a special place in our heart, at least Rick, Stu, and I do, for Mark Meadows having sent a memo with our names on it to then Attorney General Bill Barr.
Just think about what a sort of impotent chief of staff.
That did give me a little pause, you guys.
If you're going after us and you can't even
now, after all this,
now, Joe.
It's like,
sorry, man.
You're stuck with us now, brother.
And you can't even. It's not like he was asking him to go after well, we got to bring down mafia chieftains here. You can't even get us. We can't even get a phone call from the Justice Department. Hey guys, this might be a problem. How pathetic is that? So here's a question, and I think what we're all going to say, but I'll ask it. Is this going to change anyone out there who has been saying they would support the nominee of the party, even if it's Trump?
No. Unless they're saying it like Christie, just so he can get on a debate stage, right?
Look, I think this whole thing, and it was getting to the thing about Roy Moore and Jones, basically, and I think it's what that ad that we just showed from the Trump, going after Biden and the crime family and all that stuff. It's to demonize Biden and make you hate him, and if you hate him, I'm the only one who can beat him, right? And that just feeds into Trump. That's why he goes up when he's indicted and all that stuff. And I think this is a key problem that anybody who's opposing him has right now, because when I looked at the New York Times poll, you look at the head-to-heads where Biden beats each of them more and stronger than Trump. I think what that is are Trump voters. What's happening when you ask that question between him and Christie or Biden and DeSantis? It's Trump voters saying, "Hell no, I can't vote for it. I can't vote for DeSantis. I'm not doing it. I'm going home."
And we've always seen that. I mean, we've always postulated that. We've always asserted that, which is if Trump weren't the nominee, there'd be a significant portion of the party that is only for him and would not participate.
So the problem, though, is that if this is going to be, it's the same thing with Biden in a lot of ways. I think a lot of Democrats, whether they think he's, all the questions is, I don't care. He's our best shot at beating Trump. The Trump people are, he's our best shot at beating Biden. Ergo, you have to convince people. Forget about policies and everything else. You somehow have to convince the MAGA cult that you're better at defeating Biden than Donald Trump. And there's no way the MAGA cult will ever become convinced of that. And so all this plays into him being the nominee, which gets into how we started this is, look, don't forget the wishful thinking, forget about the war you hope we're in. This is the war we're in, and it's Trump versus Biden and all
the way down.
All the way down. And these indictments, I don't think are important. He has to be held accountable, but I doubt unless it moves very quickly and somehow the trial happens before the election.
There'll be an appeal.
It'll be on appeal.
If I was in the Biden White House, or part of that political operation, which I'm impressed with, I think they have a very good political operation. The idea to go to exactly what you're saying, Joe, the idea that they're trying to say you have to hate Joe Biden. Again, I don't want to give these guys ideas, but in politics, you should never go for a murder one conviction if you can win with manslaughter. So it shouldn't be that they're trying to get people to hate Biden. You should just say, Biden's not the right person. He's too old. You're going to get everybody who hates him anyway. You shouldn't hate people because you're going to have to get Biden 20 voters to become Trump voters.
Well,
and people hate to think they made a terrible mistake.
Well, but I think
where you make people hate him and you have no labels and other people siphon off votes. From reasonable people. I mean, which is, I
think we saw that last. I think they tried that last year. That they tried to make Biden hateable, and it didn't work. In fact, not only did it not work, they couldn't even saddle him with inflation and those sorts of things. Right, and the first time that I can ever remember where a president wasn't directly blamed for an economic
harm. You should run a Go Watch campaign against Biden.
Okay.
But enough about how to win.
The good news is they don't take good ideas because they're, this is the other part too that we forget about Trump, which is he is a walking id, right? He has no capacity. When triggered, he has no capacity to think rationally, even when not.
None whatsoever.
So guys,
the crazy that the Susie Wiles, who probably, already gave her piece against Donald Trump, and Chris LaCivita, who will not go to prison because he likes red wine too much, go to prison for Donald Trump, right? They can't keep the crazy at bay long enough. And that's the flip side of this, which is, yes, you energize a portion of voters, but also the crazy goes.
So maybe
part of this now, let me say something, Kristen. So part of this will be that they can't talk to each other now, right, about this stuff.
Well, some are still in a joint defense agreement. I don't know which ones, but some were apparently.
So that's interesting to think what this is going to do because I think, Jason Miller's still very involved in that political operation.
For sure.
You're going to have, you've not talked to him. I mean, it's just all mind-boggling.
Hey, Donald, if you're watching, do not be surprised if you see an ad featuring some of your favorite and most close advisors coming to you soon.
Yeah,
intriguing.
Maybe we should do a golden jail cell ad against him with everybody paying.
I will tell you, the jail cell's the most luxurious.
Yes,
like you can have the Noriega.
Telling me they've never seen such a beautiful jail cell.
You can have Noriega
or what's his name down in Colombia, right? Escobar. Pablo
Escobar.
Escobar. They built him his own prison.
Yeah.
So look, I just want to go back to you don't think anybody of standing will now say that they can't support Trump in the Republican Party who hasn't said this.
Nope.
McConnell,
Yeah.
Lindsey.
Mike Pence came out with a pretty strong statement this evening, but it still wasn't. I won't vote for this guy no matter what he tried to kill me.
Yeah, I saw Mark Short was on Fox trying to say that Mike Pence saved the world. Look, just think about this. All of these conspirators, they were all around Mike Pence. He knew what they were saying. He knew what they were doing.
Absolutely, he was in
And,
the
and
office, in the
what would
room.
have anybody would have done is you would have said, hey, by the way, there's a plot to overthrow the United States government that I just sat in the White House and heard. I think I'm going to call the FBI. Or maybe I'll call a press conference and tell people about it. Instead, he called Dan Quayle. So this
Correct.
whole idea that this
As
guy
one
is
does.
You also wonder what would have happened if there were 253 votes in the House.
I think you're absolutely right. I think Pence
I'll
waited
go
to
along
see
for the ride and be vice president again.
Pence waited to see who was going to win and threw in with the
Actually,
winning shot at the last minute.
I think a
and
bunch of the senators were too.
Yeah, Stuart,
Yeah.
you said that before. You said the reason why they were so hesitant to say anything is they wanted to see how it was going to go because they didn't want to be on the wrong side. They
Yeah,
figured
there's
Right.
two.
they'd be
Let's
okay
talk
either
about
way.
let's talk about that for a second because there's kind of two versions of this of all our kind of like former friends or maybe they're still friends, but people that we don't respect politically anymore
I
as
think it's
people.
former. I think it's
But
former.
yeah,
But
a lot of whom I help. Rick and I helped elect. Um,
yeah,
they're what they were saying is that they were the reason they wouldn't say that the president of the United States elect was Joe Biden was because, they were just humoring Trump. But there's another way to
What's the
look at
worst that
this.
could happen?
What's the
Right.
word?
Let him have his hissy fit.
There's another way to look at it that's a little more, I think, realistic. They were waiting to see what would happen.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
And
Right.
exactly.
how many of these people would have done what would have been necessary if, say, Pence didn't go in? I mean, this thing
Can
was
you
so
imagine?
close.
Can you imagine what would have happened if the crowd had found Mike, or the crowd had found Mike Pence or Mitt Romney or Nancy Pelosi? They would have killed them. And at
Yeah.
that moment, they would have absolutely frozen in Congress. They would have stopped the count. They would not have certified the vote, and these guys would have played it out to see what shook loose. The moral courage in that building that day was only present in the Capitol and DC police. It was not in most of the members of Congress who, ran like a scalded dog, including
Well,
our old friend Josh Hawley.
Well, and I'll say this. I mean, that is why I believe that there should be a statue of Officer Eugene Goodman somewhere, either in Statuary Hall
Yeah,
or somewhere on Capitol
absolutely.
Hill, because
100%.
without him, literally without him being at that moment, at that time, understanding what was going on and what he had to do, Rick,
Yep.
exactly what you just laid out, very good chance it happens.
Guys,
100%.
what I really hope they'll get into is because let's talk about Josh Hawley for a second. There is no way the Josh Hawley staff was not involved in helping coordinate with those demonstrators. They didn't
100%.
send, they didn't send their guy out there. I mean, this is they didn't. These are people that wouldn't advance. They're going to let their guy go out to a 4th of July picnic without advancing. So I had hoped in this that they would get drilled down because you're going to
Right.
find a lot of text messages on those staff, between Cruz's staff and Hawley's staff, between people involved in that. And don't forget, the Attorney General's Association was involved in this.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
the people that are supposed to represent,
Law and order.
That was
the law and
one.
order in the states.
That was one really incredible, I think, moment with Jack Smith's statement tonight when he put those officers front and center and put them on the other side of what Trump was doing in the right way. Real patriots.
Well, and look, I mean, this is what we've seen. Just a note on Smith. This is why we've seen he is very, very good at what he does. There's a reason why he was chosen for this job, amongst, I'm sure, the hundreds of incredible prosecutors. And listen, I don't know if you have ever done this, but anybody who's ever sat in a federal courtroom and watched a case, these are not the people you want to be on the wrong side of.
Yeah, I mean, I
Speaking.
love the idea that he was trying to
Fuck
intimidate
no.
Jack Smith. Like, really, really,
Yeah.
guys saying like bad stuff is going to happen if they indict me. Like, you really think that you're going to intimidate Jack Smith and the whole federal? I mean, they've been, what is? I remember once in the Bush campaign in 2000, running against your guy McCain, and somebody said, we should make some negative ads and show them to McCain just to show what was coming. And there was a sort of silence in the room. And then somebody spoke up and said, I think he's been threatened by professionals.
Right.
I don't think this is going to work.
Yeah. I mean, well, just recall that I was actually on the Bush campaign in 2000 with you. But I will say, God, how quickly you forget, Stuart, is that
threatened by professionals,
Right. But I mean, I was just as an aside, as we think about Senator McCain for a minute, just along those lines, I was once on a very bumpy airplane with him. And he said to somebody else on the plane who was nervous, I've crashed 7 airplanes. I promise you, I'm not going to die in a plane crash. So,
I mean, let's just pause for a second. How far has the party gone from John McCain to Donald Trump? I mean, and Trump attacks McCain.
We will never again see a generation like a George Herbert Walker Bush or a John McCain.
Yeah.
Men who selflessly served the country, put their lives in harm's way, and then when they lost an election, they did so with grace and dignity and said, okay, the other guy won.
Yeah.
And remember, just on that point, because I think it's important about when they lost, remember on the election night that McCain lost, remember Sarah Palin was demanding a chance to speak. And he knew it was going to happen and said, absolutely not. There's no way you're going out there.
So at this point, I think one of the things that we don't talk about enough is how Al Gore handled that moment in 2000. Just think about it, I mean, had he had even an inkling of the Trump side of him, I mean, there you have a legitimate case. If anybody's going to say an election was stolen, it was Al Gore. And from what I understand, Gore told his staff, don't trash the Supreme Court, because he thought that was of more importance than him losing.
That's right.
Must be the worst moment in your political life to come that close and to have the Supreme Court take it away. Really, I don't think we talk enough about that guy. And we worked against him, but you got to have.
I tried to stop you guys. I did what I could.
I know, and now we're all in the soup together.
Too good.
All right,
too good.
So, guys, we've got a little long, but it was a special edition tonight. So, before I let you go, though, I can't let you off the hook. So, Rick, what are you looking at here? As it'll be a long night for everybody on. It's going to be a long night.
It's going to be a long night. We're going to have a lot of additional developments in this case as the night unrolls. I'm really watching how the Republican primary field reacts to this. I'm really watching how the right-wing media reacts to this, because Trump's reactions are pretty predictable. We know what he's going to say and do. But what's going to go on out there in the battlefield preparation and shaping is, I think, really important. That's what I got my eyes on.
Joe, how about you?
I'm looking for who's in legal jeopardy that flips. It starts to move. It starts to talk more. Who goes in before the grand jury still. Jack Smith says they're still ongoing and looking at others. Who does the grand jury bring in? Who are those people? I think we're going to see other shoes drop here in terms of further indictments.
Stuart, how about you?
Look, I'm just going to say this is a little contrary, but it was a year ago yesterday that in Ukraine, that Russia massacred 45 Ukrainian prisoners of war and horribly injured and burned another 75. And, this is evil. And one of the stakes is what's happening in Ukraine and Russia. It's just an extension. Because if Trump wins and Ukraine is not decisively won, he will do everything he can to help Russia. And let's don't forget, the candidate that the Republican Party elected and is now the leading candidate is someone who there's no question the Russians helped elect. I mean,
no doubt about it.
The Intelligence Committee agrees with that. So
the famous Rubio report.
I know, and all the intelligence, and the head of the Wagner Group is still under indictment in the United States for this. I don't
Right.
understand why the guy's walking around alive, but um, this is an unusual race in so many ways, and that we look at what is existentially involved for American democracy, which of course affects the world, but the way that this affects the whole progress of democracy in this century, in the last 100 years, is so just extraordinary here. Because if Trump wins, Russia wins.
And Putin knows that, right?
Yeah,
I
if
mean,
they
it's an
just
exist.
hang on long enough.
It is an existential race for him personally, right? And that's why I think, just to extend on your point for a second, Stuart, that what we're seeing in Ukraine will get worse on behalf of Russia, not better, in the next 14 or
Yes.
15 months as he takes out whatever revenge fantasies he has. But unfortunately, he does it on human beings. All right. For me, I'm looking at those last few Republicans. We were talking about this. They consider themselves problem solvers. They consider themselves moderates, I guess. Where will they be? Right? They don't want to speak out too much against Trump because they know they'll get primaried. They don't
Right.
want to give him too much slack. But look, this is what happens, everybody, when you make a deal with the devil. Right?
Yeah.
You are damned one way or the other. They have chosen this path time and time again. They have refused to take responsibility for their own actions or to hold Donald Trump accountable. He is the alpha. I'm not sure he's the omega of the MAGA movement, but it will not end until he goes, or at least we cannot see the beginning of the end until he goes. And so, I wonder if anybody will stand up. I don't know if it's Rusty Bowers in Arizona or Brad Raffensperger in Georgia or the gentleman in Philadelphia or anybody in Wisconsin or Michigan or Pennsylvania, or anywhere around the country. I hope and I ask that if you are a Republican who is in good standing with the party and has had enough, let us know. We'd love to meet you and help defend democracy with you. All right, gentlemen. Rick, thank you as always for
Absolutely.
joining me. Guys, tune into the Enemies List podcast. Tune into That Trippy Show. Tune into the Lincoln Project podcast. And as always, you can catch our writing and all of the writing of our contributors. Thanks to Sam. Thanks to Lisa. Thanks to Josh. Everybody, we will have much more to say about this. Until then, we'll see you next week. Thank you
See you
all.
guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, folks.